Hello students, this lecture will be on sample methods. So in this lecture we discuss some problems such as scales, sampling survey, dependent and independent samples, samples representativeness, tables and statistical series, and distribution and histogram. Firstly, we discuss measurement scales. So there are 4 types of scales in your service that you will apply, and the first of them is nominal scale. It have attribute as location, brand name, job type, color files and nationality, something that you can measure in values or it will be only in quality. And then you have ordinal scale, its frequency, how often you go to the cinema, and satisfaction, how you're satisfied with your survey or with your jobs. And you can get some ranges like unsatisfied, neutral, satisfied, very satisfied, and so on. And then it might be interval scale. It's a numerical scale without zero value or true zero value, like it can be date, so month, year, or something that you can put in a range, or it can be temperature of some degrees, but you know that we have a temperature not over zero but minus zero, so it's something that we can measure and something that can calculate with values, but not all. And more frequently we handle with ratio scale. It's numerical scale with true zero value. There will be some situations such as weight, height, and so on, when you can measure and you can see the difference between them, and you can calculate the mean of your sample and the difference between other values of your sample. In this you can see the comparative characteristic of these 4 scales. So nominal, ordinal, internal, and ratio. As you can see, ratio is the best scale that can be applied in your service. So I think that if you can, you will apply such scale to your attributes or your values. When you make a service on population, you have to make some sample from it. So of course the best way to make your results true is to engulf all population in your survey, but most of the time you can't do this. That's why you have to make your survey sample, and the principle and goal of this is to make that these values and the mean of values not different from the whole population, and that probability of including every number of this population into your sample is equal for all. And after this, if these principles are considered, so we have made some calculation of means, and we have sampling error or bias in this. And then our task will be to see if there are place in confident interval or not. And on this question I'll lecture further, not in this, but on some other lecture. And meanwhile, we have two different types of samples. It will be like dependent and independent samples. Independent samples, we deal with a group of population that are dependent on some of your inquiries or something like you made to them, and the query will be before experiment and after experiment. If samples independent, then there will be no link between them. It will like male or female or people from east part of the city or west part of the city and so on. It will be independent samples. What is a representative sample? The representative sample is the amount of members of whole population that provides you with the information and true information on whole population. So that's why we have two ways to procure such information as probability, when each member of population can be included in your sample, and non-probability, when you know and you act as expert in your survey and you handle this problem and you know the persons that made your survey and results true. And what about quantity? It will be as much as your whole population, and it depends on some other parameters such as confidential interval and the student coefficients that will be disclosed later. So after you're deciding what will be or who will be in your sample and holding your survey, you'll have to put down your data that you collected from this sample of population into tables and make sample series. There are two different series. It's time series when you put down the time and attitude of some population towards some process or other things. But in main cases, we are handled with distribution series, like attribute and frequency will be in them. So there will be two columns. Attribute, what you have to collect, and the frequency. The main series attribution will make you handle with such attribute as wood, metal, or something that you can't measure it with more or less. But mostly we handle this variation of attribute. It will be in two main characteristics. It can be discrete, so it's number of rooms, family members, and so on, that you can't make it 1.5, 1/3, and so on, and in discrete, and in which cases we are mostly use intervals. It's varies length 2 for 5 meters, then 5 meters to 8 meters, and so on. In distribution series interval, we make the main three types. Exclusive series, like you see, it will be between 10, 20, 20, 30, 30, 40, and so on. When we make both ends of intervals into it. And the inclusive series, like we can get with marks and so on, like 10, 19, when we make the upper of our boundaries of intervals go to next intervals. So it will be like that. And of course we handle some data with open end series. You can see like below 5, so every value below 5 will get into this interval, and maybe above, like an example, 50, and any number that belongs to the value more than 50, it will be 8 and 108 and so on, will get into this interval. Then we make distribution histograms. We put our data into rows, so it will be weight and frequency. So the main column of your measured attribute, that you get the main thing of your survey, and the frequency. So after this, we made simple, like I'll do it in Excel, and you can get in any program and any applying program for this application. It will be a way to distribute and go like that in any form that you have to put to. So this was the lecture on sample methods and the variation of samples and distribution. Goodbye.